Okay, great. That's fine, man.
Yeah, look.
Yeah, like some stuff.
The meeting of the Public Safety Committee is now called to order. Mr. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Rolls.
Alderman Bosley. Alderman French. Alderman Vaccaro. Alderman Cohn.
Present.
Alderman Carter.
Present.
Alderman Coder.
Here.
Alderwoman Spencer.
Present.
Alderwoman Green.
Present.
Chairman Kennedy.
Here.
We have 8 present. We have quorum.
Thank you. We have several items before us. We'll first take up Board Bill. You want the, Alderman Boyd, the resolution of the Board Bill first, doesn't it?
What did he say?
Let's take up then Board Bill 247, sponsored by Alderman Boyd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Board Bill 247 is a fun bill. It's an exciting bill. It's a bill that should have no controversy. It's all about money.
All right.
Board Bill 247 is a board bill that the firefighters are participating in a grant program in which we will get a total of $206,000. Thank you. As I get older, I turned 52 yesterday. I notice I'm kind of nearsighted and farsighted, so I need bifocals. So if I call a number wrong, just correct me.
Just correct.
Okay. So starting again, $206,262. Here are the cool things that the fire department is going to be able to acquire with this grant and implement. They're going to pick up, and it should be the, you should have a copy of the grant application. If you don't, we can make sure we get it to you. Do we have that? You guys have copies of the grant application?
We don't.
Okay.
They're getting it to us.
Okay. In the grant application, you will see they will be getting 5,000 smoke alarms, 2,000 CO carbon monoxide alarms, hearing impaired smoke alarms, bed pillow shakers, and a laptop computer, and along with the cordless drill tools to actually do their job. Mailings. Spent about, let's see, we're going to do about 10,000 postcards, 10,000 mailing labels in order to implement the program. Most of us have heard, you know, it seems like every spring and fall the fire department is out around daylight savings time, you know, installing free smoke detectors and CO alarms for our constituents, which is a great program, an excellent program, and they do an outstanding job implementing it. Most people don't know, but we continue to try to educate our constituents on, if you're in need, you know, just call the fire department. You know, they're really there to serve not just for fire, but also fire prevention. If you have any additional questions, we do have the super duper fire chief, Jenkinson, here that can answer any of your questions that I cannot. He'd be more than happy to come and speak to you.
Well, let's bring him up and
Okay.
have him describe a little bit more about the program.
I'm down for it.
52?
In a day.
Okay. Good morning. This is the 30th year that the fire department has participated in the smoke detector program across this country. Atlanta and St. Louis Fire Department were the first 2 departments in this country to start this free smoke detector program. Last year, we installed about 5,000 smoke detectors on our own, and we also put in about another 3,000 with the Red Cross, who we have partnered with in an effort to try and get more smoke detectors into the homes of the citizens of the city of St. Louis. Last year, we did see our fatality rate rise. We went to a total fire deaths of about 10. We have 1 individual that's still in the hospital in critical condition, which could become a fatality for last year. Part of our problem with our fatality rate, we had 6 children die last year. Of the 6 children that died last year, all 6 of them were in a home that did not have a working smoke detector. These 6 children were in a home that had utilities shut off. We are working another avenue to try and stay ahead of the utility issue. Alderman Kotar and me have we've had discussions and are trying to resolve that problem. I've got another step that came up the other day which might help us. What we're trying to do, we went to the Clean Gas, went to the Public Service Commission that controls the utilities, and we asked them, anytime you shut utilities off, the fire department wants to know. We want to be able to put a door hanger, put something in the mailbox, knock on the door to make sure that these individuals have a working smoke detector on all the levels of their homes. So It's a program that we're still working on. It hasn't been finalized yet. There's some legal issues that we're trying to work out, but hopefully that will help us keep some of these fatalities from occurring in the city of St. Louis. Some of the change this year with the smoke detector program, the technologies are changing. Everybody is so used to the standard sound of the smoke detector. When the batteries go low and they start beeping, we kind of ignore them subconsciously. So the NFPA, the International Fire Chiefs Association, and the UL Lifting Company are making changes to the sounds that are required out of these smoke detectors. They haven't approved them yet. So one of the smoke detectors, and we just tested it, and we are going to purchase these with this grant. It's a smoke detector that actually provides two tones. It provides the tone that is now currently accepted and is the standard by the UL Lifting Company. The new tone, which should be resolved by next year, is a lower decibel sound. So this new detector is going to provide both tones. So we're going to be ahead of the game with the technology that's required. The second technology that we have tested and we're going to go with is a combination. On this sheet it says we're going to be buying CO detectors and and smoke detectors. Right. Partially true. We're going to be purchasing a detector that has a combination CO and smoke detector. But even the next step in smoke detectors, normally when you buy a smoke detector you either get photoelectric or ionization technology. This new smoke detector that we're purchasing does both. So it's ionization, photoelectric, and CO. Still about the same cost, but it provides us a level of security within the homes that we're much more satisfied with, because CO has become a big problem over the last 5-6 years. Biggest problem we have there is the utilities. You can choose which one you want to put in here. No longer check the conditions of people's furnaces. So people don't have the maintenance done. They don't have the maintenance done on their water heaters. So we see a lot of CO issues within the city of St. Louis. So hopefully this will help alleviate some of the sick cases that we respond on. The other part of this grant, we're going to a shaker. We have quite a few hearing impaired people in the city of St. Louis, and we have Bluetooth technology now that provides a signal from the smoke alarm to a device that they put underneath their pillow that provide a shaking sensation and arouse them. So we're going to be putting information on that out through the pamphlets. So this is a good program. We worked hard on it. It's only I think it went down to a 5% match this year. So we've got the money in some of our donation accounts. So it's, as the alderman said, this is almost a no-brainer. Hopefully this will help us reduce our fire deaths in the city. Any questions?
We can take questions from the committee. Alderman French?
No questions.
Alderman Vaccaro?
No questions.
Alderman Cone?
No questions.
Alderman Carter?
No questions.
Alderman Kotar?
No questions, but Chief, I just wanted to thank you. Hopefully we can make some progress with these utilities in the coming weeks. I know we're in the time of year right now where there's very few utility shutoffs, but I'd like to get this in place before next year if we can.
Right. He's been a lot of help. We got in to talk to an individual from McLeod Gas, and they're working with us on this project.
We'll go back to Alderman Cone.
Sorry, Chief. Now, I know the utilities are required to notify the building division currently.
Yes.
Do you get that list at
I
all?
had that discussion with Frank Oswald the other day, and we're trying to acquire that.
Okay. And then I know that you personally have had a relationship with Heat Up, Cool Down St. Louis over the years.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know if when you're putting those pamphlets out or door hangers, if it might be helpful to also include information about that organization. Because they do have utility assistance programs.
Right. We get that out, that information quite a bit with our social media work.
Yeah.
I'd have to check some of the grant guidelines to see if I can place a nonprofit hanger at the same time I put a smoke detector. I'm not sure if I can do that. If we can, we will.
Okay. Just an idea.
Okay, good idea.
Alderwoman Spencer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chief, I also just want to commend your efforts here. This is everything the fire department, the outreach that you all do is phenomenal. And so offer my assistance in any way to help with that program, working with the utilities. Anything
Perfect.
I can do to help.
I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Alderwoman Green?
No questions.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Boyd, are
you,
there any
Mr.
questions
Chairman.
of Alderman Boyd? Not your.
Sure.
I'd ask for your favorable consideration, due pass recommendation on Board Bill 247.
I move that we pass out Board Bill 247 with a due pass recommendation.
Been moved and seconded that we pass our Board 247 with a due pass recommendation. Any discussion on the motion? I believe some of us would like to have our name on the bill.
I would.
Co-sponsoring.
Yes. That'd be great.
So Ed, my,
All of us.
All of us.
Just put all of us.
Mr. Clerk,
Your presentation was so overwhelming.
it's good to be working with a super chief. He helped push me over.
If there's no further discussion on the motion, Mr. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Bosley? Alderman French?
Aye.
Alderman Vaquero?
aye.
Alderman Cone?
Aye.
Alderman Carter?
Aye.
Alderman Coder?
Aye.
Alderwoman Spencer?
Aye.
Alderwoman Green?
Aye.
Chairman Kennedy?
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 noes.
Okay. By your vote, we've passed our Board Bill 247 with a due pass recommendation. We'll now take up Resolution 144.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. 144 is a resolution asking the Board of Aldermen to adopt the St. Louis Regional All Hazards Mitigation Plan for 2015 through 2020. I do have Mr. Gary Chrisman, who's our emergency management czar for the city of St. Louis, to deal with all the technical aspects of this. And in my simplistic way, I can say that it deals with man-made disasters, technical disasters, and natural disasters. But he can better explain all of the fun facts.
This was the plan that you distributed in December.
Yes, I did.
Members of the board.
Yes, and it's 90 pages. I'm sure you had a chance to read it over the leisure holiday weekends and weeks, but it's about 90 pages full of fun facts. But Greg can actually kind of shrink that down to probably a 2 or 3 minute presentation for you.
Okay, then, let's bring him forward.
Morning. Thank you for the opportunity to present this to you. As was presented, it's a little bit more than 90 pages. It's about 296 pages. This is the updated plan for the St. Louis region to include the city of St. Louis as far as mitigation goes. What the plan covers and looks at is the entire region's demographics. It looks at all of its population. It looks at an all-hazard focus, which is man-made, technological, and natural disasters. So anything that can hit or affect the city of St. Louis from within or outside, this plan addresses. It gives us a comprehensive look at not only just our population, but the vulnerable population that the chief was speaking about. It also looks at our industry, looks at our chemical industry, looks at our transportation. It looks at the entire region as a whole to look at how we can best mitigate against future disasters based on what we've seen from past disasters. As was presented, it is a 5-year plan. It goes from 2015 to 2020. East-West Gateway has taken it upon themselves in the past years to update this plan with the input from the regional emergency management agencies, fire departments, and police departments to make sure that we have a comprehensive plan. And I don't know if that's my microphone. I'm normally not this staticky. But what it also does is it gives us the ability to look at and utilize this data to write and distribute other plans, including the City Emergency Response Framework. We are now also putting together a access and functional needs plan that looks at our functional need population, so we can map out everything that's in the city of St. Louis, where our vulnerabilities are, where our areas of concern are, and then also it looks at the fire codes, the building codes, and how we do business on a regular day. So I'm sure everybody had the opportunity to read it over the holidays. It's very great reading, especially if you have insomnia. So I appreciate your consideration on this plan. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Questions from members of the committee? Alderman French?
No questions.
Alderman Vaccaro?
No questions.
Alderman Cone?
No questions.
Alderman Carter?
No questions.
Alderman Coter?
No questions.
Alderwoman Spencer?
No questions.
Alderwoman Green?
No questions.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any questions of the sponsor? The resolution is necessary to adopt. The resolution adopts the plan so they can move forward with the
Correct,
implementation.
and qualify for grant opportunities in the future.
Right. But you have to do this formally to be able to qualify.
Yes.
Okay.
I do actually have one.
Alderman Cone.
Sorry. Gary, if you don't mind, And I apologize. I wasn't able to participate in all of the committee hearings relative to Soldiers Memorial and Mo History Museum taking over responsibility for the Soldiers Memorial, but SEMA has their disaster, recovery, operations in the basement of Soldiers Memorial, or at least they did.
We used to.
So has all of that now been moved out of the bunker,
Yes.
as it's affectionately called?
Yes, as it was called in the past, the bunker, the war room. We have moved our entire operations, including the City Emergency Operations Center, over to 1915 Hampton.
Okay,
Hampton.
great.
Olive in the Police Department headquarters.
Wonderful. Okay, great. No other questions?
Cleaned up all the mold down there.
Yeah.
Are there any questions of the sponsor? If not, you're recognized to close.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do ask for a do pass recommendation on Resolution 144.
I move that we pass resolution number 144 out with a due pass recommendation.
Previous rule.
Been moved and seconded that we pass out Resolution 144 with a due pass recommendation. There's been a request for previous roll. Is there any opposition to previous roll? Seeing no opposition, by your vote, we have passed out Resolution 144 with a due pass recommendation. Okay. That takes us to Resolution 165, which relates to the Prop S funding. Before you and sent out to you by email were a number of documents, the RFP, the program assessments from this year that came from the Public Safety Director's Office, the summary of the different programs that applied, and then the recommendations from the work group for funding for 2016. The work group primarily, if I can speak for it, any other members of the work group can speak on this also.
Say it again.
I will speak on what the work group is proposing, but any other member of the work group could also speak on it. We looked at the programs that were funded last year and continued all of those for 2016. We recognize that many of the experts that came forward and spoke about crime prevention talked about the need for multiple year fundings of programs. So we didn't want to cut anyone off. However, there was additional money this year, so new programs were also recommended for funding for 2016. The work group wanted to ensure that various programs were funded throughout the city so that no areas were empty of programming that was needed. So that's why you see some of them with some of the newer programs that were funded. Some were just given enough to get some seed money to get going so they can begin their track record. So it's primarily how the work group viewed the funding for 2016. Also provided to you is the spreadsheet. We did have the United Way go through, as they've done last year, and to look at the applications and to rate them. That's this spreadsheet that you see. Two evaluators from the United Way looked at it, and that was also what the committee looked at. Most of this, all this material you've had for some time. I just wanted to make sure that we had it in front of us here today. So we can open it up for any questions from committee members or comments. You have a question? Alderman French.
All right, thank you. So I wasn't on the work group, and I appreciate the chairman sparing me those hours, and I appreciate the work of the folks that were on that committee. So I do have just some questions about some of the suggested amounts. So one, I always lean towards, and I say this every year, is using these funds to do big things.
Right.
So I always prefer a fewer number of organizations getting the larger amounts where they actually can accomplish something. And so on the other end of the spectrum, though, we've got a few organizations with very little amounts here, and I'm wondering what they are doing or can do with that amount. So the St. Louis Fire Explorer, 5,000. Throwing and Growing, 7,500. Prison Performing Arts, $7,178. And Let's Start, 7,500. They all have less than 10,000. So what can they do for that money? Am I-
Those, what was the first one that you mentioned?
So the ones that have less than 10 are St. Louis Fire Explorer, Throwing and Growing, Prison Performing Arts, and Let's Start.
If I can speak on the work, you want to speak?
No, yeah, you can take it.
From my remembrance, the work group, first of all, made sure that the ones that were funded last year received monies. Those with those smaller amounts, from my remembrance, are programs that had not been funded before.
Yeah.
And so we were expanding the programs that had been funded in 2016.
Okay.
And also, if I can add, Alderman French, they also asked for a minimum amount. I believe that the St. Louis Fire Explorer program, I think they asked for 10,000, if I can recall. And I believe that someone had a conversation with the Throwing and Growing organization, and they didn't ask for that much either, and 7,500 is fine for them. And so I forgot everybody else who you said.
Just the ones on this, you have the spreadsheet, the ones that got less than 10.
Oh.
And I mean, so sometimes we adopt a strategy where something is better than nothing, but in practicality, when it actually gets down to it, if you don't have enough to do what was budgeted, you might as well not do any. You just can't do it. So if somebody had already slimmed down their budget and asked for 15 and we only gave them 7, are they making up that money somewhere else? Are they decreasing the services? Or I don't know. That's just a question I have. And usually there are people from those organizations that are here from.
Well, if you remember,
Are you from an organization?
Not at this point. But if you remember, we had that conversation before. And the public safety office, tells them the amount and then sees what is possible. And then in some instances, from my understanding, there's been a rescoping of what they're talking about. The services they're actually talking about providing. If you'd like to hear from someone who is here, we can do that, but this was not a public testifying.
It was. There's somebody here from public safety.
You want to hear him?
Yeah. Can you identify yourself, please?
Yeah, Josh Kramer with the Director's Office. So I oversee just the execution of the funding as directed by the Public Safety Committee.
So, so were you responsible for notifying the organizations that their requested amount was not going to be granted, and then to ask them what they could do with this much lower amount?
I would be upon having received the amounts. I haven't received that yet, so upon receiving that information, over the last several years, we've gone back to the organizations and asked them to try to size their services and the youth that they'll serve to the amount of funding being offered by the committee.
So, but you're not planning to do that until after we award it?
Well, I don't have that information, so yeah, I would.
You wouldn't do it until.
I wouldn't be in a position, as I don't have the amounts yet.
So you haven't seen Exhibit A?
No, sir.
Okay. I mean, I would prefer that was probably information that we would have before we voted on it. So if an organization, like I said, had requested 15 or 20,000, and we're now saying we can give you 75, I think it's an important question to ask is, one, can you do anything with that? What can you do with it? And then it would be even better to have that in writing about what the new scope of services would be. Okay, so we don't have that. All right. Okay, so let's start on Elliott. So some of the ones that got larger amounts. The St. Louis Police Foundation, what is that program? What are they doing?
St. Louis.
Maurice come up.
Come on up, Mark.
And that is really the
Check that mic. Yeah, maybe just it needs to be unplugged and plugged back in.
The budget for some new mics.
That's definitely a wire, so one of the wires.
So Maurice, are you familiar with the St. Louis Police Foundation program?
Yes, sir. That was directed specifically with the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department, and there are 3 programs, actually 5 programs, including 2 PALS camps, a football camp and a basketball camp with police officers actually working with coaches and pro sports players. And we're going to move those north because opportunity for them to have recreation camps north, because we've had considerable difficulty in getting camps to go north. And so with them and the police officers working with kids 11 to 18, giving them an opportunity to work with the police officers as coaches as opposed to someone dishing out a certain level of discipline and building better relationships. The other programs were some programs that were tested and are already in motion. One is called the GREAT programs, which the detectives working with the high schools in somewhat of an educational environment and teaching them what police officers do, how to generate opportunities for you to want to become a police officer. The second one is an Empower, what they call LIFTS Academy. That's over the summer, and the LIFT is Leadership, Integrity, Fairness, and Service, which they distribute amongst the summer camp recreation opportunities with the departments, the St. Louis Police Department's core principles. And the other one is the STOP, which students talking it over with the police, and it already has 540 students participating in the program. I can get a copy of this list of programming that comes from directly from the Public Safety Department.
Okay, so this is a new program, so they did not receive any funding last year?
Right.
Okay. And there seem to be a lot of different programs you named under this one thing.
Yes.
Do they have funding coming from another source, or is that all they're going to do with this 55?
No. Actually, the program is already in place, and we're trying to build an opportunity for it to be extended because it does show a level of success.
How's it being paid for now?
I don't have that information, but we can talk with Lieutenant Perry Johnson, who just took over from Officer Boxstruck, yes. He took over that program. It's also extending into where we had a retired police officer, Darrell Noble, when they had the over at Northwest High School with the community service police working within the community, doing the summer programs. And so it's all extended out and becoming very popular.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
If I may tell you about Let's Start, how we broke that down in a sense is that Let's Start is asking for funding for a program for kids 5 through 18. Our program is from kids at risk from 11 through 18. And then we start looking where salaries and things are contributed to what they're asking for, as well as how much per child, with the amount of hours that they're distributing to the children. There are some scenarios where these are year-long programs and we actually just need some of the programming for the summer months. And so in those situations, we try to minimize it where if they can work with this amount of money for the period of time that we think is most crucial, which like the summer months, to make sure that they have programming engaging for the kids. Also, a lot of the Prop S proposals are recruiting from the same areas, and prior to last year, which showed a high level of success, we would get duplicated kids in the program, so you're counting the same kid 2 or 3 times, so at the end of the year, you're saying you produced over 100 kids, when in actuality, you're taking the same kid's attendance at each time. And so basically, you're just doing 20 kids. And the funding, in some cases, scenarios, if they don't use their funds, we lose that money to basically like the general budget. And so last year showed a high level of success with the programs that we work with, such as St. Louis Youth Jobs, always Big Brothers and Big Sisters.
We reduced their funding, though.
That's a whole nother subject that relates to St. Louis Youth Jobs. They do a great, but they're a pass-through. And most of the funds that they get, they give it to MERS. MERS is $150 million. Is that MERS? I think MERS receives close to, I don't know if it's MERS or the YMCA, but I think MERS receives close to $150 million,
Not going into youth jobs.
Right, but it passes through, but MERS actually has a proposal on the table as well, where they asked for like 30,000. And so...
They didn't get that?
Yeah, they did.
Oh, Goodwill here.
Yeah, Goodwill.
So what's the Goodwill program?
It's from kids 16 to 18, where they reduce crime with job readiness programs, and it's exactly the same that your STL Youth Jobs. But before it comes out of Youth Jobs, though, they developed this program for financial literacy that they work with Slate on. And so over the summer, like they're saying, we get at least 100, 200, 300 jobs with these organizations.
Mm-hmm.
So
do you expect us to be able to get less, though, if we give them less money?
Not exactly. There were some protocol issues that needed to be addressed. So the budget was reduced, and then the protocol, some information that hadn't surfaced became available, and so we increased it at least back up to 75.
Okay, that was kind of vague there, so some...
Yes, sir, it's vague.
Okay. All right, so I guess the point I'm not understanding is so when you look at the breakdown here, the program assessments, I guess public safety prepared that?
Public safety prepared that that's last year's information.
Right, so you look at the number of youth served. The STL Youth Jobs program served more than anybody else. Some of them by a very large amount. 396 students completed the program, or kids completed the program. Partnership primarily between Incarnate Word Foundation, MERS, Goodwill, and Slate. So it seemed to be the most successful of all the programs. Why would we reduce those funds?
That's not necessarily true, and then you're, without being in a certain realm of duplication, that Slate is also a member of that with their jobs, and if you look at the Slate, what their success rate was for last year.
They say 200. So you're saying Slate's counting the youth jobs?
Their Slate actually provided the youth jobs in a separate program that was dealing strictly with the Board of Education. There are scenarios that was most important, in a sense. With MERS and St. Louis Youth Jobs, the Board of Aldermen requested specific opportunities for certain jobs to take place in different areas. Those jobs were not available to us. Slate, just as well as the Board of Aldermen had directed an opportunity for jobs to take place, if they expected jobs to take place,
troubleshooting to find out which is, and we don't have separate controls on them, so I can't do it. So I apologize for that.
I'm going to have it.
Please stop talking.
if they expected jobs to take place in certain, the Board of Aldermen has an opportunity to designate opportunity for jobs in different realms. Like if you needed 4 youth summer job workers to come and work in your office over the summer, because this is Board of Aldermen's money with the Board of Aldermen's place, and you could request that from Slate. When we tried to request opportunities like that for the Board of Aldermen to place summer workers through St. Louis Youth Jobs, they didn't have them available.
The whole program, but look, that's...
Because they were working other places.
Yeah. And we don't have an opportunity to direct it. By them being private, we give money to a private organization, and then they designate where the money goes. And so that's why I was saying that
Isn't that the same for everybody else on this list? We don't want to get in the business of micromanaging.
No, but we get a chance to direct some jobs, though. We're just speaking about jobs. We're not speaking about
Is anybody here from Slate?
any other organization.
Michael Holmes was here.
Yeah, Mike was here.
So my first question here is about the alleged double counting. That's a concern. So I mean, one of the ways that we have to measure the success of programs is here listed youth served. So now we're saying that some people are double counting.
Well, we didn't really discuss that in the work group, but we did try to get a good understanding of the relationships between,
The
MERS
organizations.
Goodwill, Slate, and what was it, one other agency. That is some information that,
Incarnate Word. That's where those,
Incarnate Word Foundation.
yes.
yeah. Can you explain a little bit of that relationship?
The relationship, as I understand it, having visited with Greater St. Louis Community Foundation and MERS Goodwill, and having visited, I believe, Dream Foundation, the church facility up there. Greater St. Louis Community Foundation works with MERS to identify, as they do with Incarnate Word Foundation, identify job opportunities for the youth. As mentioned, they also have the financial literacy piece, which has been an important piece of helping the youth to understand how to manage their money, how to establish accounts, working with these youth who are unfamiliar with the banking process. And also, First Financial, I think, is the institution that's taken on a lot of these youth that's agreed to work with an at-risk population in this regard. So I cannot speak to the double counting. I know that the Greater St. Louis Community Foundation works very aggressively with MERS and with the Incarnate Word Foundation to find these youth opportunities, and it is true that I just spoke with MERS a couple weeks ago, and they are dedicated to ensuring the best opportunities are the opportunities for the youth. Best meaning opportunities for growth, opportunities for future employment. They're looking for enrichment opportunities that may lead to future success for the youth. So they have a very...
Conversation with MERS last week, though, if we give less money to the youth jobs program, will they be able to place less youth in jobs this summer?
Not having spoke with them about this particular year's funding, I can only reference previous years, and in previous years, if less funding was provided, less youth would have had opportunities. That's probably the best I can speak to that issue.
Okay. Is Michael Holmes, did he step out again, or he did? Somebody?
Yeah, would you? I can just turn it. Yeah.
It's usually a cable goes bad. It's probably on. Which one it is, because if I can.
Mr. Chairman, while we're waiting, would you mind, who was on the working group? I don't know, did I miss that? Did we discuss? I mean, I guess Maurice, I'm inferring that Maurice was on the working group.
Was on there.
You, Carter, who else?
We also had
Yourself?
Cone.
Okay.
And Megan was.
Okay,
but
thank you. I was just curious.
She was unable to attend. They had a question about.
No, I don't want to just walk up.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing well.
Good. So you can clear up a couple things. So first, you guys, under this, looking for $99,000?
Yes, that's what we proposed.
Okay, and you guys are also a part of the youth jobs, STL youth job program, right? You're a partner in that?
Correct. All of our jobs that we have for not just summer employment, but regular employment is labeled under STL youth jobs. We're trying to do a brand for all jobs under that name.
So how does that program differ from the one that you were seeking funding for, the Who I Aspire to Be program?
We have a public side, and STL is the private side. I mean, they go out, solicit private donations. We don't. We are funded. Am I doing something wrong? We're funded through public dollars. So when the dollars are public, coming through the state, coming through the feds, other grants we write, opportunities, then we do the public side of the program. We also have all labeled with STL, but STL has a private side, and we work with both of our programs, understanding the public side has different requirements than the private side. Like the private side, anybody can go in their program that's in those target areas. Public side, we have to have requirements.
So are you saying that the $99,000 that you applied for under the Who I Aspire to Be program is actually part of the STL Youth Jobs program?
We label it part of STL Youth Jobs, yes.
Then you guys
But Slate manages it. Pardon me?
each other for funds?
Well, what happened, and at the time we did that, this year, you know, when we heard the money was limited, we have 3 programs in the budget, I believe, 3 opportunities. And what we wanted to do, our focus is our civil liberties and our prison to prosperity, because we know that makes real difference with kids with criminal records or with dealing with the juvenile justice system. We're trying to get them out to really go and get employment and change their lives. When they're the private side, meaning STL Youth Jobs, they deal with all other communities. They have target communities they're dealing with. So we will be rather okay dealing with the public side, meaning using the dollars for civil liberties and crime to prosperity, prison to prosperity, and let the private side, STL Youth Jobs, work with the STL Youth Jobs portion of this. But at the time we did it, and we were used to be on the committee. We were just 3 years ago. We were told, get off the committee and apply. But when money is limited, we don't want all of it. If we can get 2 pots, our 2 priorities, we're fine, because we know they're making real impact. We're getting those kids who are in MSI who may have a conviction or not have a conviction. We're getting them retrained and getting to jobs right now. So it's 3 different programs.
Okay, so I'm completely confused now. All right, so the program here that it says that we're funding here.
Last summer.
Last summer.
That was last
So
summer.
what are we funding this year?
Those same programs. Yeah,
The Who I Aspire to Be program?
yeah, that's the same program from last year.
But he mentioned 3 programs.
The 3rd program is in.
So what are your 2 priorities? You said 2 of your priorities.
Prison to prosperity
Not, okay.
and civil liberties.
That's
Oh,
their title.
Yeah, those are the type.
I think Hillary Frazier may be able to shed some light. She's with the STL Youth Jobs program.
That's an excellent idea.
So we were told there were 3, but we have 3 programs in here.
I just see one line.
We have 2.
Yeah. STL Youth and the regular select program.
What are the 2 line items?
Okay, there was, unless it's all the funding.
I see y'all just one category of slate for $99,000.
Yeah, but he just said, and STL Youth is the other.
No.
No,
You're saying the STL Youth.
that's
No.
the private side.
We're separate.
Request.
That's a separate request.
Okay, so slate, the $99,000 is going towards what program at slate?
You're saying the 3 programs.
The civil liberties. And our priority would be civil liberties and prison to prosperity.
Those 2.
Have those been funded in the past?
No, no.
That's
Those-
new program.
We've done a pilot, and those are new that we're doing now. We are doing it, but we're doing it on limited funds. And those are what we're saying are two top priorities.
And those would be included inside of the 99,000?
Yes.
Yes, civil
Yes.
liberties and prison prosperity would be our program.
And how many youth do those serve total?
They would serve, I think it's 100.
100?
That's more than.
How many did we serve last year?
Last year, you served close to 200.
200?
In a separate program, though.
Yeah, but we could serve almost the same. Yeah, because we would just split it up between 101 civil liberties and 100, and what we're doing with civil liberties is those are young people that have fines. And what we've worked with the court is to reduce the fine. If they work with slating, getting and training and employment, the court reduces their fine up front 50%. They don't have to pay it.
I got it. But the point I'm getting to, and is my spidey sense goes off when folks say that they can do any number of kids for a solid number of dollars. So the amount of the dollars has to determine how many kids you serve.
Like last year, Alderman, I think we said we were going to serve 100. We served 200. We took that money because we look at other funding buckets we have, that's federal money, and we'll say, well, maybe we can stretch this program.
Now, were any of those students or the youth served that you counted as 200 part of the youth jobs program as well?
Yeah. But they can only get paid from one bucket, one source, and they got paid from Slate. And so they may have done 3 weeks with Slate and 3 weeks with summer jobs program. So now they got work for 6 weeks. And we paid them off 2 buckets. So you get to count them twice.
So is this the double dipping you're talking about?
I didn't call it double dipping.
I'm calling it double dipping.
No, they're not.
He said double counting.
Double counting.
From the
Right.
same salary.
They're not double dipping because you're only paying them for 3 weeks
3
on
weeks
this.
here
You can
and 3
work a
weeks
kid 3 weeks, 4 weeks, or 6 weeks, right?
Exactly.
We choose to work a kid 6 weeks, but with 99,000, we don't have that won't work.
Right.
So the number gets low, but if I can
It
add,
was made by Maurice, I think you were not in the room, was that some of these things count the same individual kids. And so if we look at it, we say, oh, total we served 500 kids. In fact, you served 250 kids with 2 different organizations. So that's important to just, I think that was the information.
but the bucket, they don't get paid from both.
Yeah.
They get like 16,
that's the
one
deal.
group, like you may get 3 weeks of payroll on one because we're saying we want to stretch this money.
I got you.
And if they qualify to go on the other side, we say, let's get them started here. Let's qualify them now on this side, but they can start working. And so you can bring them in, see how they're working, if they're ready to go to a company, but it's a work-based program.
Yeah, I've gotten answers to my questions. I understand that. So if just the last, if you can, you're from STLU, John?
The success of that program is extended as well. I don't know if you mentioned.
I'm clear.
We got it.
I got it, Maury.
He just needs to ask a
I'm
question.
good. So you wanted to make a statement about,
Sure. I just wanted to offer clarification regarding the organization of STL Youth Jobs and our proposal that's on the table. I'm Hillary Fry. I'm the executive director. I think some of the points that Mr. Holmes was making regarding Slate's relationship with STL Youth Jobs maybe clarified some of it, but we are an initiative that's integrated into the mayor's office. We serve in 10 different target neighborhoods in the city. We have a couple of years of history of providing youth employment services in those different targeted neighborhoods that are targeted based upon high poverty, low educational attainment, high density of youth within the 16 to 24 age range as well. Our partnership with Slate has allowed us across both STL Youth Jobs and Slate to integrate what summer youth employment means and what Mr. Holmes was saying about the branding aspect of it. One of the things that we are trying to do as we're building up this initiative to make it beyond just those 10 target neighborhoods within the city. We really want to grow this to being a regional initiative, is developing commonalities across all programs. So SLATE is doing a lot of very specific programs based upon specific funding streams that are somewhat restricted by government funding. And what we're doing is trying to take those more general categories within youth employment and branding them in the same way, so that we're building up an infrastructure that can be the advocate for youth employment in the future. So STL Youth Jobs is not a 501c3. We're unincorporated. We're a public-private partnership. We receive public funding through a few channels within the city of St. Louis, including historically Prop S, but we also look for private dollars through corporations, grants, foundation support as well, too.
If I can, so
sure.
just for the sake of speed. So one comment that was made earlier was that the funds that are allocated to STL Youth Jobs passes through to MERS. Is that how it works?
That is correct in the sense that MERS is our program arm. They actually do all of the hiring of job coaches and youth, and that is and the reason behind that is so that STL Youth Jobs can continue to serve in the role that we serve in, which is unincorporated and not handling the program directly. So we're really more of the advocate and the fundraiser for the initiative itself.
So if you all get less funding from this source this year than you did last, is MERS going to make up the difference?
No.
That means you will be able to hire less youth?
That's correct. That's correct.
All right. That's all my questions.
Thank you for the opportunity to clarify.
Were there any other questions? Alderman Cone has something.
I hate to bring up the same cast of characters again to provide more clarity, but I mean, I think the folks that were on the subcommittee know that, you know, I'm particularly passionate about STL Youth Jobs. But, you know, Michael, if you don't mind returning up to the podium, please.
We have questions. I don't know if we're going down the list or not.
Yeah, we'll call you next. Let him finish.
Okay. I'm just curious, because I'm not as familiar with SLATE's program. However, through this process, because I wasn't on the, you know, this committee or subcommittee last session when we approved the funds, but, you know, having the chance to sit through this process this time around, I've learned a little bit about it, and I try and do my homework outside of, you know, the, you know, subcommittee meetings and all that. And so, you know, I've had some conversations with like SLPS because I believe that there's a partnership between SLATE and SLPS.
Yes.
And, you know, I brought this up in conversation with the subcommittee as well, that, you know, one of the pieces of feedback that I received was, you know, young people were, you know, being allocated over to SLPS for a job program, but SLPS didn't have the capacity to really provide them with the mentorship for those roles. And so SLPS kind of went back to, I'm assuming, SLATE to say, you know, are we able to offer, you know, educational opportunities to these young people instead of, you know, kind of that practical work environment experience, if you will. And so I'm just curious, like, you know, if you could give us a little bit more detail in regards to the program itself, like,
But it's St. Louis Public Schools?
well, yes. So when you're talking about the two programs that you're focusing on with the money that's in this budget for this year, who's administering that at SLATE? You know, is that yourself, or do you have a staff member that's doing it? And is there that partnership with SLPS? And I mean, the last thing that I think any one of us want to see happen is, you know, we allocate $100,000 over, and, you know, young people are just, you know, twiddling their thumbs at SLPS headquarters, kind of a thing. And so if you could share with us a little bit more about the program and exactly, you know, who's administering it and how SLPS may play a role in that.
We administrate our own program. Dr. Alice Prince is our youth services director. And what we did last year with St. Louis Public Schools, during the summer, we have kids who go to summer school, can't go to work with companies. But if we could develop, when we developed a program last year to say they can go to summer school, when they leave, or when they get out of summer school, they can work at SLP, St. Louis Public Schools, cleaning up, working in the office, working in department head. So all of the departments of SLP PS took students, as many as possible, and they took students based on some students who had graduated, was eligible, went in, but those students that went to summer school, you can't get a job if you go to summer school to 12, right? So we wanted to say, well, if you got a job at 12, we could place you at other locations. Some St. Louis public schools work for the school system. Some work for independent. Some worked at Forest Park in the president's office. So we gave them opportunities, but we try to say, if you're going to be in summer school, what can they do within the school that they're working, they're doing summer school? Because then they are a part of that staff after hours.
So they are already enrolled in summer school as
Some of them were.
either a requirement or elective to do so.
Yes.
And so we're basically going to SLPS and saying or I should say Slate is going to SLPS and saying, give us a list of the students that are currently enrolled in your summer school programs.
No, we did an open enrollment.
Okay.
They had to apply.
Okay.
Because we want kids who want to work. Every kid. And so they came to an opening, we worked with those kids, and we put them in different locations.
But they're not getting paid to go to summer school.
No, we don't pay kids to go to school.
They're getting paid for jobs after they're done completing their courses.
Yes.
So, Alice Prince, the program manager for this, so I remember you and I having a conversation when I first got elected because, through the stimulus package, there were funding opportunities available for jobs. I think you recall that. It hit us pretty hard and pretty quickly. And so one of the things that I recall during our conversations back then was you saying that, most of the federal monies that you all receive through Slate, are earmarked for specific, audiences. And so there's not a lot of flexibility for you all in that organization to have youth programs. So, I wasn't kind of apprised of, Alice and her role until I started engaging in this process. And so can you tell me, how is her role funded? Is it through this money or is it through other sources?
One thing we did not do, which we usually do with other grants, other opportunities, is we take administrative cost. But with you, you didn't give us the money to do that with this. So we didn't do it. So her money came from other youth programs that we manage to say, well, we'll do an in-kind service because this grant's not large enough for her or either staff. For us, we hire staff. Your money wasn't large enough for us to even hire a staff person. So we just pitched in to do what we could do to make this successful with the other summer program we were doing. So, but it's not a budget for me or for Alice to work the time she puts in.
Right. And this might be a conversation for another time with you and I at some point, but what other youth programs is she working on?
We have a lot of year-round programs with certain populations that would have huge requirements that we put people in. And so she runs that program. She runs a youth build program. It's for young people. She runs the Civil Liberties program. She runs the Prison Prosperity program. She runs a juvenile program where we work with kids who are in the juvenile justice system. And we work with them to try to get them a skill as well as jobs at the same time, because most young folk want to work as they go to school. So we have around about 5 or 6 different programs.
And are those funded through federal dollars?
All federal.
Okay. And, well, I might need to have a whole separate conversation with you offline about that.
You know, I'm available.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, anytime you want to have that conversation.
Thank you.
Following the seniority list, Alderman Vaccaro.
I want to read from the resolution. I'm just making a point.
Okay.
Whereas Section 1, subsection V of such ordinance provides that $1 million is allocated. If you look at the list, there's only $866,000. Where's the $134,000? At the meeting, prior to this meeting, when Paul Payne was here, we talked about this. And we were told that we would be getting, and as part of Prop S, there's supposed to be $1 million.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I would ask that we don't vote on this today, that we bring Paul Payne in. I'd like to know, because I would like to see more money be brought to one that's particularly strong with me is big brothers and big sisters, but I'd like to know where the $134,000 is at. It's the biggest number on this page. The biggest number on this page is the money that's not here. We got slate, almost 100,000, but the biggest number on this page is the number that's not here.
If you remember, that was in the budget and was allocated to other public safety department needs. That's where it went to. And this year, there was more dollars for Prop S than last year. Last year was like 622,000 or maybe 600. So it's been an increase in it for this year because we pushed to make that happen. But we were unable to get it to the full amount that we were seeking, which was the $1 million. We've had that discussion, if you remember, in Ways and Means.
But I also was told I thought it was going to come back to the full $1 million. At least that was my understanding. I have to go back and look at the tape. But
that wasn't what finally. That's not what was finally in the budget.
So the money that's not here that went to public safety, couldn't we list it on here so that I know where it went? I mean, it went somewhere, right? I mean, it was in the budget, but maybe they should.
Right. It wouldn't be listed on this material because this is just the monies that we're appropriating for Prop S. But that's in the budget.
Right. So part of the Prop S money, and I guess the point I'm making, was not appropriated through this then. And it should be all appropriated through this. That's just my opinion. I'm just sharing that. But that's what I believe.
You can respond.
Yeah, so we go through this every year on Ways and Means Committee. I think not since the first year have we ever gotten $1 million. The first 2 years. So we have not gotten a full $1 million since. And I agree with you in sentiment is that this is something that specifically taxpayers went and voted on. They wanted $1 million to go towards this new programming, and that we keep siphoning this money off to plug budget holes. I think is not in good faith for what the taxpayers and the voters approve. And also because the amounts are so relatively low, I mean, I think it's just more insulting than anything else that, you siphon off almost $40,000 instead of just fully funding the $1 million. $1 million is not a lot of money for what we're trying to do. It doesn't go as far as we would want it to go, so that we can't even get that full $1 million, I think is something that we should all make a pact here to fix on Ways and Means this year.
And that's all I was saying.
Oh,
I wanted to make a point.
Yeah.
I didn't have any questions. I just want to make a point that, the biggest number on this is still the missing.
Is that missing? This Prop S, the dollars were, came after a lengthy dialogue and a struggle because it represented a different approach to crime prevention that many municipalities have a hard time grasping. And this approach is to try to do something on the front end so that the types of policing actions that we see to stop crime don't have to happen on the back end. It is a greater recognition that a person goes into crime after a series of events happens, and there are indicators. And so these dollars were an attempt to address it on the front end. And it has taken government a little time to kind of fix its mind around it. So those first years, it was difficult, even in discussion in the committee, to get people to grasp that this is to try to address it on the front end, because it became questions, well, we should spend this on fencing or, programs where people want to put bars up on the windows, and that's not what the experts tell us is the best spend for crime prevention dollars, is for programming for youth and families. And so we had to work through all of that to get a better focus as to how to use these dollars. And so that's been kind of the generation of it. But that's what you see each budget year, because there has been a greater struggle to get an understanding of what is the best use of it. Then some years you've seen it actually cut back from those early years.
And I understand that. I just wanted to make it a point, because I know going into next year, we're going to have probably what I believe is going to be one of the toughest budget years we've had in quite a few years.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have a budget shortfall of $6 million plus with the Rams. You got the red light money not there. We're doing the interest on 15, 20 markets. So, having sitting on Ways and Means since I've been here, so I just wanted to bring that point out.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
So that we're still working toward the goal of getting this go forward Or then the next year we see a lesser amount?
Yeah, and there's also some discussions I had with some of the committee members, and now that the mayor has put forward a comprehensive crime prevention program and proposal, we'll be bringing Mary Ellen before us to discuss it and then possibly really talk about how to connect these dollars with that comprehensive crime prevention program in the future. But that's upcoming discussions. Were there any other questions? Or
No.
You're next on the list. Alderman.
I'm gonna wait. You can pass me.
Okay, then. Alderman Coulter, did you have anything?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, subcommittee, for all of your hours you put into this and all the hard work. And I know you get many tough choices to make when it comes to funding these organizations. I was hoping, I know Maurice sort of spoke a little bit about this. I've got an organization in the 7th Ward, Let's Start, that works with women who've been released from prison and helping them with reentry and their families get acclimated. They do wonderful work. Last year they received $0. In a previous funding year they received $15,000. So they're one of those groups that, if you're looking at last year, again, they're in the 0 column. This year they've, I guess they've been in this document awarded $7,500. So for going forward, and I get that these numbers are most likely not going to change this year, I was hoping someone could just shed some light on that application, or if someone from the subcommittee would be willing to meet with them. I know Maureen Gelser, their executive director's here, just so for future years they can make sure they're crossing their T's and dotting their I's and putting forth an application so they can get fully funded. I'm confident they'll still be able to operate and will continue to do great work in the community, but you know, I would like to see in some of these instances a little more analysis than just looking at the previous year's allocation and then, you know, giving them something and maybe look back at sort of the circumstances surrounding why maybe they got nothing one year and more money in previous years for future committees.
Yeah, well, certainly.
Yeah. So would anybody in
You have the staff to write all that up, too.
That's right.
Which we don't have.
Maurice, would you or somebody be willing to meet with Let's Start and talk to them about
Yes.
the future? Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
There was a max on the amount of money that we would give to organizations, and about.
Will you step up and explain this so people watching on TV can hear us?
There was a max on the amount of funds that would be distributed to a particular organization. About 2 years ago, it was asked that we increase that number to at least 100,000 so it could make an impact. And so that may have been a difference in the, why it was funded at one point at a greater level or less contributions than it is now with the greater opportunity. This is only the second year that you can actually apply for up to 100,000.
Okay.
And so, and a lot of times everybody, that's exactly what they do, ask for 100,000, but there's a level where they say, well, percentages for services and percentage for administrative fees, a percentage for salaries, and then our most important factor is that we want to know how much you're spending per kid.
Right.
You know, so.
And is that on this document? I guess is this program assessments document from last year, or is that a document from last year?
That's everybody from last year.
Then I won't even bother asking about that. Never mind.
And so the Prop S, the proposal is given to you as well, and it specifically outlines the 11 to 18-year-olds.
Okay.
And so if you have a program that's enlisting kids from 5 to 18, just as well as 18 to 24.
Right.
You know, we're only concerned from
11 to 18. That's understood.
Okay.
Thanks, Maurice.
Yes, sir.
Alderwoman Spencer?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'd like to echo Alderman Coder's gratitude to the subcommittee for all the work on this. But I'd maybe make a suggestion too. I know I've been reached out to by several groups who have been making an impact in the community I represent and are looking at this with some level of confusion and to some extent, and would like maybe the opportunity to come before the subcommittee perhaps next year, or some avenue for folks who are making these applications to speak on the programs that they're running themselves, just to answer questions, or you know, just to really highlight some of the good work that they're doing.
That can happen.
Sure, thank you.
It has never happened before. The committee has never called them in.
And it
at
would,
that
you know,
time.
have to have some time restraints, obviously, with the sheer number of applications that we have here, but I think that those folks running those programs might be able to best advocate for the work that they're doing and speak to the exact amounts, and if they, as Alderman French, you know, points out some, you know, when we are awarding significantly less than the applicant is requesting, if that is even going to be a useful tool for them, if, you know, and they would be able to answer those questions.
Mm-hmm. Certainly.
Sure.
I think that could be beneficial. Although, okay. Were there any, Alderman Carter, did you have any questions?
No questions, but I just want to commend you and the other members of the subcommittee and Josh and Maurice that worked on this. I think that we did an adequate job in making sure that we funded folks at a level where they can operate and still get some positive things done in the city. So that's the only comment that I had. And I do maybe next year want to see or want to hear from the organizations that we are funding or planning to fund, to hear more about what they can do with the money that we are expecting them to have. So thanks.
What you mean?
Can we hear from Maurice?
Been noted and that
Mr. Chairman, I think
Alderman
that you
Bosley.
left me. Yeah, you didn't see him leaning back here in the chair.
Yeah, okay.
He said no
couldn't
questions.
see him. She was in between them.
Maurice, did you have a suggestion for how to make,
that next year that we were going to have a pre-application.
no, I meant with regard to this year's funding?
I think there's an opportunity to move the STL jobs up to the 95,000 mark that was relative close to where they were last year. I think there was just a discrepancy on the information that was initially submitted that that we had to operate on it, and so just to move an opportunity to to get them up to 95,000 with a change in the program.
And where would you suggest that coming from?
From Northside Youth and Senior Service, which is a opportunity that the area would use for grass cutting and different opportunities for youth jobs, and the alderman spoke of it as well.
So the Northside Youth and Senior Services, who administers that program?
The church.
The church.
It's on St. Matthews.
Oh.
And so there are two areas of that where it's North Side Community, and the across the street is another opportunity with the North Side Regeneration, some relative, but they're actually the same company. Yeah, they're actually the same company. Well, they actually use their particular funding for developing a garden.
Oh, okay.
And so they're already developing gardens in that area, and so that's how that could be favored.
Okay. I would support that. Is that a new organ? They didn't get funding the prior year?
Yeah, they were funded last year, and it worked well, but they actually are trying to change the program until.
They served 19 youth last year?
Yeah, they're trying to change the program, and I think we may have given them a smaller amount last year. Let me find them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I'll support that.
Okay, I would support that. So that program right there only served 19 folks, and again, it's a small amount that I don't really know what, those small amounts, I would just rather fund.
Well, some of them requested certain levels, and like we were mentioning, next year we'll go ahead and talk with them in a pre-application opportunity. That way, we can talk with them directly about why or feeling that the levels. It's just as well as everyone would love to increase their amounts. Mm-hmm. And I'll just leave it at that. I'll just leave it at that.
So I would just say that, as has been stated before, is that STL Youth Jobs is the city's highest profile effort to put youth to work and to give people opportunity, along with what Slate does. And it is also, according to our assessment last year, the program that served the most youth. So I think it would be a step in the wrong direction to reduce their funding. If anything, we should try to increase it, definitely not reduce it.
I'm going to repeat that there were some technicalities regarding certain issues that was submitted.
Okay. So they got 95?
Yes, sir.
96 last year. That's what this is, 96 last year. Your suggested amount was 75, 21,000 less.
You can take that 20,000.
So I would suggest, based on your proposal about the Northside Youth Services, the lawn cutting program, taking the 20 from there and then maybe 1 from Slate. All right. So STL Youth Jobs last year got 96,000. This year's proposed that they get 75, which is $21,000 less. Based upon Maurice's advice, I would suggest that we take the 20 from the lawn cutting service, Northside Youth and Senior Services, and take that 20 to there, and then take the other 1 from Slate.
Just 1,000 to get them back
to at least get them back to exactly what they had last year.
Yes, sir.
We need a motion for that.
We need. Yeah, I would make. If there's no questions, I would make a motion that we eliminated the Northside Youth and Senior Service line item, and
Take it up to.
And turn St. Louis Youth Jobs to 96,000, and then amend Slate's from 99 to 98,000.
I second that motion. Previous roll.
Previous roll on it. Ouch. Previous roll.
It's been moved and seconded. It's been a request for previous roll. Is there any opposition to previous roll? Seeing none, by your vote, we have passed the motion. We have a motion for.
I honestly wasn't here for the last roll.
Pardon me. Then let's call the roll. We're going to call the roll because Alderman Bosley was not here.
Alderman Bosley?
Aye.
Alderman French?
Aye.
Alderman Vaquero?
Aye.
Alderman Cohn?
Aye.
Alderman Carter?
Aye.
Alderman Coter?
Aye.
Alderwoman Spencer?
Aye.
Alderwoman Green? Chairman Kennedy?
Aye.
Alderwoman Green?
She brought that. Okay.
We have 8 ayes, 0 noes.
By your vote, we've passed the motion. Do we have a motion to adopt the resolution 165?
I'd like to make the motion we adopt resolution 165.
We have a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we adopt resolution.
Previous roll.
Been a request for previous roll. Any opposition to previous roll? Seeing none, by your vote, we have adopted resolution 165. That completes our agenda for today. We have some board bills. We'll probably have a committee hearing next Thursday. And then the following Thursday, the 28th, we have representatives from the mayor's office to begin to review the comprehensive crime prevention program with us. Okay?
I have a. Will we be meeting with Chief Dotson soon?
We can make arrangements.
Okay.
Haven't made them yet, but we don't have a date yet, but we can.
Okay, and never mind. I'll ask you offline.
He will be probably here when we do discuss the comprehensive plan.
Okay.
But if you have some specific things with him, I'll get with you on making arrangements with it.
I have a quick question too. Will we also be working with the crime commission?
Crime commission that the mayor appointed?
Yeah.
There's no plans at this point. Perhaps something is in the comprehensive plan in relationship to it.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
With that, our meeting is adjourned.